Welcome to 10 for 10, a series of interviews with personalities and dedicated leaders across the Major Arena Soccer League, which is celebrating its 10th anniversary. I'm your host, Eric Bergrud. For this week's episode, I am joined by Soccer Sam Fantauzzo, legendary owner of the Rochester Lancers. Welcome to 10 for 10, Sam.
Thank you so much for having me, Eric.
I appreciate you being here. So in 1970, your uncle Al Oliveri took you to your first Rochester Lancers North America Soccer League game. How did that experience affect you?
I mean, I was his first ever professional event. I was amazed by it, but a few days prior to that, these two Italian brothers, the Inglesi brothers, moved into our neighborhood with this soccer ball. None of us knew how to play soccer. None of us ever kicked the ball before. We're seeing these guys do these tricks, and we could do it with a football, we could do it with a baseball, we could do it with a basketball, but we felt useless or with the soccer ball at our feet. I go to this game, and I see these guys with these 40-yard bombs and chesting off their chest and their heads. I thought, wow, this is just too amazing. And then I became obsessed with learning the game of soccer from that point on.
So fast forward 5 years, 1975, and you attended your first indoor soccer game. What was your first impression of indoor soccer?
That's when I really fell in love with the game of soccer. It was so quick. At the time, I was a hockey fan. I knew hockey, so I kind of could connect with the whole hockey thing big time. And just the speed of the game. And it was the exhibition series that they were playing, the first ever indoor exhibition series the NASL put on. And that was it. Once I saw that, I just couldn't get indoor soccer out of my blood.
So you purchased the rights to the original Lancers name and resurrected the team to compete indoors in 2011. What inspired you to make that leap?
Well, it was kind of easy. I was basically purchasing something for my other business, my pizza business, registering a name, and I saw how quick the lawyer did it. So I just, out of curiosity, said, "Hey, anybody own the Rochester Lancers name? That's my team." When I was a kid, that's how I fell in love with soccer. They looked it up; it was available. It was not a huge fee, and I paid the fee. And then I basically put this beautiful plaque that they gave me, that they eventually mailed to me in my office, and it was there for years and years. That with the Lancer name and logo, owned by Salvatore Soccer Sam Fantauzzo. And I just figured it would just sit there, and it was kind of cool to own. And every year I had to renew this thing, or every couple of years, and I did that. I offered some Lancer merchandise because I guess you had to keep the name alive. So we, rebranded some of the Salvatore Pizza stuff with some Lancer logos on it. So we kept the baby alive, and that was huge for me back then.
So I have two books by Michael Lewis, the great soccer writer, Alive and Kicking and Still Alive and Kicking. He devoted a section to you in the second volume, Still Alive and Kicking, which is the chronicle, basically, the history of the Rochester Lancers. What did that tribute mean to you?
I can't tell you how emotional I got when I read that. I mean, I've given soccer my life. Prior to this whole Lancer thing, my wife and I ran an adult soccer league. We did youth soccer stuff. I mean, we've devoted our lives to the game of soccer. And, I got lucky with getting the Lancer name. I got even luckier that the commissioner of the indoor league, the new indoor league, the MASL, was one of my best friends. And he invited me to join him. So when I joined the indoor Lancers, I decided to use the Lancer name and logo. I wasn't going to at first. I was going to call it something else, River Hounds or River Dogs. But when Chris called me and I said, "Hey, I can use his name," it was so cool. And then when reading it all in the book that Michael wrote, just hit home big time. I just started crying like a baby, like thinking, this has been most of my life. I've given, most of my life since I was like 17 or 18 years old, when I got suckered into taking over the men's adult league in the city I was in. And, I never looked back and regretted it, but nobody else wanted to do it. My wife and I said, or at that time my girlfriend and I said, we could do that. So we ran the league, and then next thing you know, I had a connection, and the Rhinos happened years later, and TV shows and radio shows, and no one ever heard of cable access TV in the 80s. We brought cable access TV and soccer games every week, the game of the week in the league. We were running this adult league, and then eventually it transpired into the Buffalo Blizzard and doing stuff with the Buffalo Blizzard, and then eventually obviously the Rochester Rhinos, which was a huge part of my soccer life, and the Lancers capped it off. But Michael doing that story just brought it all in my brain back, and it was a great, great feeling.
So speaking of Rochester, some of the greatest names in indoor soccer history have played professionally for the Lancers, including MASL President Shep Messing, Doug Miller, Bronco Segota, and the late great Jim Pollahan, who scored the first goal in MISL history. What pride do you take in this rich Rochester soccer tradition?
I mean, you know, nobody understood it back then, but there was this local sports writer. His name was Bob Matthews, and he would do a column. And he was the only one that kind of cared about soccer in our city back in the day. So he would tell us about this Lancer player and playing on the Arrows, or this Lancer player playing on the Spirit or whatever. So I was keeping track. You know, back then there was no internet where you could easily find this stuff. So, you know, I was keeping track of all my guys. And then, you know, some of the greatest players, like you said, of all time, wore the Lancers jerseys in the game of indoor soccer. And I just felt like these are my boys, this is my team. And when I relaunched the Rochester Lancers indoor, one of the first people I interviewed to coach the team was right here in Florida, was Bronco Segota. So meeting Bronco Segota at a cafe and just talking soccer was just truly amazing. And then a few months later, Ray Klavecka, that also was an Arrows coach and a Lancers coach, lived in this market. And I talked to him about, you know, moving and coming to coach for us. So, and again, all those stories, these guys with all their history and all their stories. And it was just special that I could say now that I'm part of, in reality, the oldest soccer brand in America still operating. And in 1967, when the Lancers were in the A-League, they joined the NASL to save the NASL in 1970. We're the only brand that was part of that whole era of 1970 soccer still in existence. So it's kind of cool. I mean, others came around later, the Seattle Sounders, Portland Timbers, whatever. But we were the only ones of that era that kind of hung on there. So it's pretty cool.
So American soccer history is replete with examples of smaller market franchises having passionate fans who create a tremendous home field environment. That includes the NASL Rochester Lancers, the MISL Wichita Wings, and today MASL's Utica City FC. What can you say about the love affair these cities have had with soccer?
You know, I think Rochester was special during the Lancers era, and then they were gone for 15 years. We got lucky. Chris Economides, good friend of mine, genius. He somehow convinced the state of New York and the county of Monroe to let this new soccer team called the Rhinos open up a brand new baseball park before the actual tenant, the Rochester Red Wings, were going to play in it. So everybody wanted to come, not to see soccer, not to see the Rhinos, not to see Doug Miller. They came to see this new stadium. Well, that was probably the most exciting game in the history of soccer in our city, where they were down by 3 goals. Doug Miller came back, scored 3 goals or 4 goals, and they won the game against Montreal Impact. But at that point in time, all these diehards that were baseball fans became soccer fans. So we became Soccer Town USA. You know, it was unbelievable. That whole era from 1996 to 1995. I'm sorry, yeah, 1996 to 2005 was just truly, it was on fire. Soccer in Rochester was on fire. Abby Wambach, prior to that, Mia Hamm, their first women's national team game came to Brockport State. I was part of that all. And with that whole era of Julie Foudy and that whole group of people. So we, you know, it was like soccer buzz on every TV station, every radio station. Again, internet wasn't what it is now, but people knew. Doug Miller was a household name. I mean, Pat Erkley, the coach of the Rhinos, was a household name again. And it was just a special time in soccer history in Rochester. And it's unfortunate that it ended the way it did, but it was just such a beautiful time.
So one more Lancers question. The Lancers competed in the MASL and now currently play in the M2 League. What does the future hold for the MASL and the other leagues within the MASL network?
Well, Eric, I don't know how much time we have, but I got to tell you the story because it's kind of important. I go to lunch today with the godfather of indoor soccer, Ed Hale. So we're at this fancy hotel that he's staying in, like, you know, only he could stay in. And I see these people with these tags on, and it says insurance. So I just, you know, question what they do. They work for the New York State, they work for the Federal Insurance Fund of America. So I tell them the whole story of what happened with the Lancers with insurance and workman's comp and how it works and how it's not really fair to roofers and siders and construction guys, and especially minor league sports teams, on how these insurance companies that insure you immediately give out monies to the claims, give claim money out, and then they basically put you out of business. So I was telling this girl this whole story, and then she started telling me stories that she knew of the same thing happened. But basically, the indoor Lancers would probably still be in the MASL Division I if we could get workman's comp at a reasonable rate. Because we didn't understand the way the laws worked, and we put a lot of players on workman's comp that shouldn't have been on workman's comp, that we should have just kept on paying them and had some doctor fix them up or have somebody tape up their knees or their ankles. It's almost impossible for us to get insurance. So the only way to compete right now is to play an M2 where there's no insurance needed. So that's what we're doing. I played at the Blue Cross Arena, 10,000 fans a game, 7,000 fans a game. Amazing. Maybe not led the league, but we're up there with attendance. And then, we lost that deal because the hockey team bought the arena and they didn't want any of the sports centers. So they threw us out and they threw the basketball team out. So I found the Dome Arena. Wasn't designed for a sports venue. We had to bring in the scoreboard, every little detail. It was designed for a concert hall. Did all that, and then COVID hit. And we did try playing, M1 for one season, or MASL for one season. And the only game we won, I think I said this to you before, was against Kansas City. And I swear to this day, that Brian and the great Leo Gibson let us win that game just to make us feel good, because we were getting killed 20 goals a game every single game. The fans kept on coming, though. I was like, what's wrong with these people? But we would sell out every game, 3,000 fans, 3,100 fans, every game we get killed. No exaggeration. 10 goals, 15 goals, 20 goals. And my local guys that are now undefeated were learning the game. And they were learning how the boards work. They're all great outdoor players and great college players, but they hadn't learned indoor soccer. So we were getting destroyed. And then obviously, like I said, COVID hit, took a year off, and then we came back in M2, and I'm glad we did. And I hope we can continue going undefeated for the season.
So my final question for you, Sam, if you had to pick your favorite moment of the MASL's first 10 years, what would it be and why?
Well, other than this interview with you, the legend himself, I would say, there's many. I think my greatest moment as a Lancer owner is when we paid tribute to the fallen firefighters. Some 2 firefighters got killed right before Christmas, or on Christmas Eve, and our game was like a few weeks later, and 2 got killed, 1 got injured pretty bad, and I'm pretty sure we played the same Kansas City Comets at the time, and sold out arena, 10,000 plus fans. Every media station in town's there, ready to going to be there. Every celebrity in town was going to be there. And Brian Budzinski calls me up and says, "Hey, we're stranded here in Chicago. I don't know if we can make the game." And I'm like, "Brian, dude, you got to get here. We got 2 hours here, and this thing sold out. This is the biggest event maybe to ever happen in Rochester. We got one of the firefighters that got injured is going to come out. He's going to be here. His family's going to be here. We're giving replica Lancer jerseys to the families of the 2 firefighters that they got murdered, a month before or 3 weeks before, whatever it was." He's like, "Let me see what I can do." Somehow, don't ask me how he did it, he got one of the national airlines, I think it was United at the time, to basically turn on a plane, bring in a pilot, bring in the 2 stewardess, get the Kansas City team here, not minutes, maybe an hour before kickoff. They landed at the Rochester airport. I had all my Kumbas, all my buddies driving their cars to the airport to go pick them up with pizzas in the car, water, tape. I had my trainer in one of the cars to tape them up, so by the time they got here, they were ready to go. National anthem comes on. The firefighter that got injured walks out. He was supposed to walk out with the walker. Decided to walk out on his own. Wasn't a dry. Everybody in the house was crying. It was the most emotional moment you could even imagine. And I never forgot that moment, and never forgot what Brian and the Comets did for us, because they could have just said, "Hey, sorry, man, we can't make it." To this day, I don't think he's ever really told me what he did to pull that off. He's probably still paying payments on that plane, but I mean, they got here and we played the game. We beat them. They were exhausted. Obviously, they were in the airport for like 24 hours, then getting out of little Fiats and little Chevy Cruises to get to the game. I sent my interns, everybody, to pick them up, but that was definitely the greatest moment in my life in the world of indoor soccer that I experienced, to see the emotions of the fans, seeing this firefighter come out, seeing the emotion of the family members that we honored. It was just truly special.
Thank you so much for your time, Sam. Thanks to each of you for joining us. We will be back soon with another 10 for 10 interview.